Now, Obama's going to come back and he's going to say, oh, I'm moving to the center, just like, I told Clinton to do. And he's going to say, I'm not going to do it all through tax increases. I'm going to cut spending too. 50-50, spending cuts, tax increases. But that's totally illusory, because when you raise taxes, you screw up the economy. You retard economic growth. And your tax increase might lead, you think it might raise $1 trillion, but it only raises $500 billion because it slows down the economy. And then in the meantime, while you're cutting your discretionary spending, Department of Education, NASA, Defense Department, and EPA, that stuff, your economy slows down, so your unemployment compensation and your Medicaid payments and your food stamp payments and your welfare payments have to increase. Your entitlement spending eats up your savings. So between the lack of revenue because you're taxing a dying economy and the increase in entitlements because of the harm your tax increases do, it means you don't get any net revenue out of it. You don't balance the budget. And you have to raise taxes more and more and more, and you get into one of these death spirals that Michigan is in, or California, or New York. And that's what we have to avoid. So it is absolutely essential that our congressmen understand that no matter how much global pressure there is, no matter how much the markets tell us, no matter how much the economists plead with us and the Federal Reserve Board admonishes us and China and Japan threaten us with not buying our debt, that we say no to additional tax increases. Flatly, no, across the board. Now, there is one tax that really collects revenue. There's one tax that works, that doesn't slow down economic growth, and that tax is a tax cut. I remember how I would be sitting there with Clinton in the Oval Office working on cutting the budget so he could negotiate with Gingrich and Trent Lott. And we would sit there for hour after hour poring over the yellow pad. It was something to watch. He had a photographic memory about the budget. He could literally write a 10,000-line budget on a yellow pad without notes and get it right. By the way, I might note that this photographic memory applied only to his public life. In his private life, he was positively amnesiac. In fact, there's another cute story, again a true story. I was on the phone with my wife Eileen with Betsy Wright, who was his chief of staff in Arkansas, who was in charge, really terribly, of rounding up the women who had sex with Clinton and cowing them into silence by digging up dirt on them. You had an abortion 20 years ago, and this will come out if you, whatever. And and she was telling a story that her roommate came home one night, and Bill Clinton, and she said, it was the weirdest thing. I was with Bill yesterday. This was 91 or 92. And he started to say, these accusations against me are outrageous. I don't do this kind of thing. I'm not engaged in this kind of thing. I don't know these women they're accusing me of being with. And she said to Betsy, and Betsy told us, I almost dropped the phone. She said to me, I think he forgot that we had sex. Slipped his mind. Anyway, so we were going through all of these spending cuts, and we implemented them, but they didn't do much. We were planning to balance the budget by 2005 with that stuff. And at the end of it, Gingrich said, why don't we cut the capital gains tax from 28 to 20? And Hillary opposed it, but I worked hard on it, and Bill endorsed it, and we did. And we were drowning in revenue because we got so much more money, they call it velocity, off all the transactions that happened at 20%, as opposed to everybody sitting on their money because you would take 28%. And the result was that we balanced that budget by 1998. So, and then when Bush cut taxes on the top 1% in 2001, the top 1% increased its share of taxes from 37% to 42% as he decreased the tax rates. They kicked in $100 billion a year extra in tax revenue because they were getting more economic growth at the lower rate than at the higher rate. So tax cuts and spending cuts and no tax increases. And we need some tough SOBs who will stand there and fight for that.